Hello there! This is my first ever YouTube video following my writing journey, and I am the 996. In 2017, I completed my first manuscript of my young adult sci-fi fantasy novel, which is higher on the fantasy side. When I was about 5, I would tell my mother these long-winded stories. That's the age it started. They would go on for days on end. Probably a sign that I needed to be a novelist one day. Later on, I started playing with my Barbie dolls to get the stories that were erupting in me out in some type of way. And then as I got past the Barbie doll stage, I started writing on the computer and writing by hand. Then when I was a teenager, that's when I started trying to attempt at least, getting more serious about my writing. I would write chapters at a time, and I'd be determined that these stories that were like full-length movies in my mind would be able to go and be put on that page. But it never quite worked out that way. But what happened was I would get a few chapters in, and then I would think about another story idea, and I would want to go to that. And also I would look at my writing, what I was writing compared to a published novel, and I would think, oh my goodness, am I ever going to get there? During my teen years, I read many writing magazines from the library. I even remember one birthday getting the Complete Idiot's Guide to Writing a Novel as a gift. My aunt would sometimes take me to writing workshops in the area. And when I was 17, I completed my first short story, which was a horror short story I'm very proud of. It was the first short story that I ever completed, the first fictional piece of work I ever completed. But I haven't gotten published, even though one day I hope to. What happened was I went to college, and my family was very concerned that I not end up being a starving artist. So I got my degree, and when I was in college, I was an honor student, and I had other priorities. However, my stories and my creativeness did not just completely go away. But what happened was I would write short stories off and on, and I took a poetry class and was to write poetry. And I would read poetry at local events in town. When I graduated later on, there's this magic moment where I found an object that reminded me of a story world. Now let me first explain to you why this moment was so magical. Now I mentioned when I was 5 is when I first started telling my mother these long-winded stories. However, when I was 6, there's a specific story whose world and characters have been growing with me now, and I'm in my 20s. What happened was I attempted to write the story because I had various different versions of it because I would imagine what would happen if these characters were in different situations and these core character traits about these different characters were the same and they're in different scenarios. I tried writing one version of it when I was about 14 or 15. Didn't quite work out. I didn't finish it. Again, I tried during 2000. I can't remember the exact year, but it was when I was in college during the summer during Camp NaNoWriMo. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what Camp NaNoWriMo is, first of all, NaNoWriMo is an event where you try to write 50,000 words of a novel in 1 month in November. And that's to prove to yourself that you can actually complete a large amount of work in a short period of time without worrying about editing yourself or censoring yourself to help propel you to finish a novel. In the camp, they do that as well during the summer, except you also could have lower goals for word count, or you could be revising or working on a group of short stories or various different writing goals. I still didn't complete it. So later on, after I graduated college, as I was saying before, I found this object. And this object was this beautiful moment because it was connected to the story world where been with me for years and years. And it had to do directly with a side character in this story as well. And all these memories start flooding back to me about these characters. And I started writing things down. certain little ideas here and there. Throughout the years, I had been keeping records of various different things I had written throughout my childhood and throughout my teen years, and different character profiles, and I guess you could call them summaries a bit about various different stories. And mother had suggested I do that because eventually, as you go on about your business and about your life, you forget certain things. I'm glad I did that. So what happened then was this moment where it was like Christmas lights that were just glowing, and you see them just be so bright. I remembered my aunt telling me how stories just stay with you, and she had stories with her since she was about 14, maybe 14 or so, also when she was a teenager, and how she had these stories that were still with her to this day. And I remember my friend wrote a book called A Ouija the Curious Cat. And I was so happy for her. I remembered that day when I was at my friend's author event and being proud of her, but also thinking to myself, when is my day going to be for that? And that's when I also remembered this poem by Langston Hughes called Dream Deferred. In that poem, it asks what happens if you keep deferring your dream. I couldn't remember exactly how the poem went, so I went to YouTube and I listened to the poem and I read along the lyrics. And then I realized it was time. It was time. I was working 2 part-time jobs. I thought, okay, I'm not in school where I constantly having papers coming out of my ears and tests and everything. I can get this done finally. So within 3 months, I completed my first manuscript. I started getting my character profiles more completed, and I wrote a 1-page outline and read a lot of writing books that I would shop around Amazon, shop around for the best deals. Also, what happened was I joined my friend's writing group, which became mine, called the James River Writers. They're a great writing group that inspire and are encouraging of every writer, no matter where they are in their journey, no matter where they are as far as their age is concerned. And that's when I found out about the writing conference they had. I had never been to a writing conference before. Writing conferences are often where they have lectures and workshops involving various aspects of writing. And then I was, oh my goodness, this sounds wonderful. What was also so wonderful was that I got to pitch my story idea to an agent. And I knew, oh my goodness, that would be awesome, because what happens is if you pitch your story to an agent, and if they choose to have you submit the first few pages or first few chapters to them, they can request the full manuscript, and that means that there's a much higher chance of getting represented and getting to a publishing house and getting published. What happened then was I went to the writers conference, and that looking forward to the writers conference and being able to pitch to an agent helped propel me to finish my story. Once I finished that story, I pitched to the agent, and I pitched to actually 2 agents who both told me that I could send them my story once it was completely finished and completely finished being revised, the first few chapters or pages, and they would see if they wanted more and if they're interested in representing me or helping me possibly see about someone else who might want to represent me or who would be interested at least in reading more about my story. So I'm very excited about that. I'm still working on revising because the year after, in 2018, including revising, I also started submitting a lot of short stories places. I never submitted any of my short stories anywhere. I started writing a lot of short stories to submit to publications, and I started doing other things. So I wasn't as focused on revising my novel quite as I think I should have been. And I also realized, even though I've been taking some notes about my story, about different things I wanted to change and needed to be more cohesive about as far as revising, I needed to do some various different things so I could look at my story more globally. So now I'm at the point where I am writing, revising my story with the help of beta readers. Beta readers are people who give constructive feedback about my story world and characters. Because no matter how many books you read, no matter how many magazines you read, no matter how many books on fiction you read or fiction books you analyze, you're always too close to your work to see everything because you know your story very well. What happened then is I remember just kind of realizing that this was a time that I started making thinking of writing as a career. Now, I'm not delusional like I was when I was a teenager. I thought when I was a teenager, you write a book and that's it. That's just your career path. I know that writing is going to be a secondary career for me because you can't make a living off of it unless it's a rare exception. But I do know that these stories have been with me for a reason, and I'm going to get them out in the world for people. I really, really want to make sure you know, no matter where you are in your writing journey, you can do it. Even with supportive community of friends and even being a writer's group and having family that are encouraging of writing, it's still something that can be daunting. It can be a very daunting process. And while I know I have a lot to learn, I do have certain things I believe that have helped me as far as character development and other story world building and other types of crafts certain questions I ask that help me specifically. So even if you don't have characters that have been with you for years and years, since you were 6 years old, there's still stories I want to tell or stories I would write about where I would ask certain questions about the character. And asking those questions help me get to know them better. So that's what my next video will be about character development. And these videos about following my journey and trying to help people as long as they want to go about theirs. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to discuss anything, constructive criticism about the video itself, what you like, what could be better, please leave a comment below. I really love to hear what you have to say. Also, if you want to learn more, please subscribe to my videos and you'll know next time my videos show up. I plan to post a video about once a week or once every other week. We'll see how it goes as far as more regular schedule will be, and I'll keep you updated. Remember, you always can reach for publication. And don't ever give up on your writing journey.